Dahil ang tunay na Pilipino ay may paninindigan at handang kumilos para kay Juan. Hanggat may puso na nagnanais ng pagmamahal, lagit laging para sa Diyos at para sa bayan.
Good afternoon again mga kaibigan. Welcome back to our channel. So, itong next na story natin is a little bit disturbing. It's another Filipino, kapwa Filipino na nandito sa US na may ginawa na namang masama. You are given that opportunity to come here in the land of opportunity, like they say, and then you do something illegal. It's not good, right? So, this is a teacher from Hillsborough County, Florida, and he is 31 years old, Christian Paul Sunga Schneider, or I think his real name is Christian Schneider Paul Sunga, and he was arrested after investigators say he allegedly had inappropriate communication with a former teenage student. So, at hindi lang inappropriate mga kaibigan, hindi lang inappropriate messages ang allegation na ito. According to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, Christian Paul Sunga allegedly solicited child material, or CSAM, from this former student. And apparently, this communication wasn't something that allegedly happened once or twice. Sabi ng mga authorities, si Christian daw admitted that he had been having what they described as an inappropriate communication with a teenager since 2023. So mga 3 years din, matagal-tagal. Now, before anything else, kailangan nating sabihin again, just like always, these are allegations. So Christian has been arrested and charged, but he has not yet been convicted. So of course, it has to go through due process. But let's talk about what authorities are saying happened here, because there are a few things about this story that really caught my attention. First one, paano nagsimula ang investigation? So, according to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, investigators started looking into Christian Sunga on July 28. And during that investigation, they reportedly discovered that he had been allegedly been sending inappropriate messages to this former student from Franklin Middle Magnet School. Now, when you first hear former student, parang pwede nating isipin na maybe this happened, years later, maybe adult na yung former student. Hindi. This is reportedly still a teenage former student from a middle school. And Schneider actually used to teach at that same school. So according to the school district, he was hired October 2022 to teach at the Franklin Middle School. Then for the year 2023 and 2024, he was transferred or reassigned to Memorial Middle School. And according to investigators, Christian said that the inappropriate communication with this former student had been going on since 2023. So obviously, ang unang tanong ko, how old was the student when these conversations allegedly started? We don't know. That's not on the report. At least based on the information that has been released so far, hindi sinabi publicly kung ano yung exact age ng teenager. And honestly, I don't think we will need to know the identity of this child either, kasi minor talaga itong batang ito. So we have to leave the child alone. But the timeline is definitely something that investigators and prosecutors are going to have to establish. So then next came the arrest. So Christian was finally arrested on Friday. He was booked on 2 counts of soliciting child sexual abuse material and 1 count of unlawful use of two-way communication device. And guys, just so we are clear, when we hear the term CSAM, which is the child SA material, that's the terminology commonly used now for sexually exploitative images and videos involving minors. Okay? So these are not minor allegations, mga kaibigan. Hindi ito simpleng teacher sent an inappropriate text. No. The charges are much more serious than that. And here's another detail that I know people are going to have opinions about. So Christian was booked into the Falkenberg Road Jail and was released the following day after posting 7,500 bail. And I know some of you are probably going to be asking, bakit 7,500 lang or 7,500 lang? But remember, bail doesn't mean the case is over, and it doesn't mean somebody has been found innocent or guilty. It simply means he was allowed to remain out of jail while the case moves forward, subject to whatever conditions the court imposes. Here's what really bothers me. For me, what makes stories like this especially uncomfortable is the teacher-student relationship. Because think about it. When you send your child to school, wala ka naman doon, right? So you are trusting these adults with your kid for 6, 7, sometimes 8 hours every single day. And teachers become very influential people in in children's lives, right? Sometimes nga, kids spend more waking hours around their teachers and classmates during the week than they do with their parents. So there's automatically a power difference there. Teacher ka tapos adult ka. The student looks at you as someone or somebody in authority. And even if the child eventually leaves your classroom, that previous relationship doesn't magically disappear. Kaya medyo iiba talaga when you hear, oh, former student naman? Okay, but how former? And more importantly, how old is the former student? Because there is a huge difference between somebody who was your student 15 years ago and is now 30 years old versus somebody who recently left middle school and still a minor. Very different situation. And then I saw this on the details. According to the district, Christian Sunga passed all required background screenings when he was hired. And whenever we hear cases involving teachers, coaches, daycare workers, anyone working with children, palaging may comment na, how did this person pass the background check? And believe it or not, and you can see, I'm showing it to you right now, this person came from the Philippines. He had a doctorate degree. He had all these videos everywhere in Facebook and also in YouTube as a guest speaker. I mean, this guy, it looks like he made it, right? And then came to the US and this is what he's gonna do. Guys, background checks can only tell you so much. Kung wala namang previous criminal record or something disqualifying that shows up during screening, what exactly is the background check supposed to predict? It cannot read someone's mind, right? It cannot tell you what someone might allegedly do in 2 years or 2 years later, right? Probably didn't have any records in the Philippines. So when they did some calls, because that's what they usually would do here. If you said, hey, you know what, I came from the Philippines, and they do your background check, especially when you work for federal government contract, they actually call your school, they actually call the district, they actually call everybody who you mentioned that you work for when you were in that other country. So they actually do that background check. Pero kung wala talaga siyang nagawa in the past, and then there is no way in the Philippines where you can run a number and say, okay, I can see what he did from 1990 to 2000. Because it has been reported and it has been recorded on some national document, right? Wala naman talagang ganun. So, personally, I'm not ready to blame the school district simply because he passed his background check. What I would want to know is something different. Were there complaints while he was teaching? Were there warning signs, right? Did anybody report any inappropriate behavior? Or did another student ever say anything, right? Or maybe another teacher noticed something? Because if there were previous reports and nobody did anything, okay, that is a completely different conversation. But right now, based on what has publicly been reported, we don't know that. The school district also confirmed that he has not been in the classroom since the current school year started. And after the district learned about his arrest, yep, he did resign. So the district released a statement saying that the safety and well-being of the students remain their highest priority and that they were grateful to the sheriff's office for their work. And obviously, that's a statement you would expect from the school district. But I think this case brings up something that parents really need to think about now. Kasi yung mga phones and social media have completely changed the teacher-student relationship. Think about when we were kids. If your teacher wanted to talk to you after school, anong gagawin niya? Call your house, right? And then your parents answer. That's how we used to do it. When I was in the Philippines, that's how we still used to do it. But today, meron ng Instagram, meron ng Messenger, Snapchat, WhatsApp, text messages, Discord, whatever, you name it. An adult can have a private conversation with a teenager literally while the teenager is sitting inside their bedroom. And the parents might have absolutely no idea. And that is really scary when you really think about it. And this is where boundaries matter, my friends. Now, I am not saying that teachers should never communicate with their students electronically. I know my son actually communicates with his teacher via like an email, but I haven't access to that email. So obviously, pagkasasabihin natin dapat wala silang communication, that is unrealistic in today's world. Teachers send announcements, homework reminders, tons and tons of messages about assignments. Sport coaches communicate schedules. May mga group chats here and there. And of course, those are the legitimate reasons. But personally, I think again the communication should be through official school approved platforms like school emails, like something that parents are able to take a look into or monitor. Because why does a teacher need a secret private communication with a minor? If it's about school, okay. Put it somewhere accountable, somewhere the district can access if necessary, somewhere that does not disappear. The parents also need to teach their children, their kids, that just because an adult is a teacher, or a coach, or a counselor, a pastor, a family friend, whatever, you are still allowed to feel uncomfortable and that you have to say something. You are still allowed to say no, to tell your parents about what's going on, because sometimes kids think na, teacher ko yan eh, baka ako ang mali. No, adults are responsible for adult boundaries and we shouldn't put that responsibility on children. So what will happen now to Christian Sunga? So when these reports came out, court records reportedly did not list an attorney for him and reporters had not been able to get a comment from him. So obviously, there is of course another side of this case that we haven't heard yet. And that's why I'm not going to sit here and say he did this or he did that, as though there has already been a trial, because there hasn't, and that is very important. The prosecution still has to present its evidence, like always, and the defense gets to respond. And ultimately, the court will determine what can actually be proven. But I will definitely be interested to see what additional information comes out, especially about the 2023 timeline. Because I feel like that's the part I keep coming back to. When exactly did these alleged communications begin? What was the student's relationship with Christian Sunga at that point? And what evidence led investigators to these charges? So those answers may come later as the case moves forward. So mga kaibigan, one thing I think we can talk about before this case is resolved is boundaries. Especially now that kids have so much access to adults online, and honestly, parents cannot watch everything. You just can't. Teenagers have phones and they have school activities, like we said, and friends and social media. And you cannot sit beside your child 24 hours a day checking every conversation. So part of protecting them is making sure that they understand. If adults start asking you to keep conversations secret, that is a red flag. If an adult starts sending messages that makes you uncomfortable, that is a red flag. And if a teacher or another authority figure starts communicating with you in a way that doesn't feel right, you need to tell someone. And you won't be in trouble for telling. I think that's the most important part. As for Christian Paul Sunga, we'll see where this case goes for him. Again, my friends, these remain allegations. He is, of course, entitled to due process, and being charged is not the same thing as being convicted. And if more details come out, especially once court documents start giving us clearer picture of what investigators say happened, and then we can come back and talk about it again. But I'm curious, mga kaibigan, what do you guys think? Should teachers be allowed to privately message minor students from their personal phones or social media accounts at all? Is that happening in the Philippines? Here, I would not allow my child. And in fact, like I said, I have my son who goes to charter school and he would show me his messages. So, and I appreciate that. And I do trust him. But at the same time, in my head, what are other platforms that these minors and these teenagers use that I really do not have an eye on, that I cannot monitor, or that they are hiding from me? So, mga kaibigan, let me know what you think down in the comments. And if you like this kinds of discussion, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys sa next story. Bye!